Welcome everyone. Today we're going to dive into Portugal's dysfunctional, deranged, totally messed up immigration system. I'm going to talk to you about how bad it actually is, and we will talk about whether it is still worth going and looking at some of their residency programs, given what a train wreck of a mess it actually is. So let's dive in and talk about it right now. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Michael. We help people with international tax planning, with relocating around the world, with doing everything from figuring out the best solution to them to actually implementing that solution in terms of helping you get the visas, helping you to form companies, opening bank accounts, even if you're staying in your home country, building an international structure to match that, to do whatever is legally possible to lower your taxes, which would be far beyond what is possible if you're looking at just domestically. Depends on the country. We have to look at it. And so if you're interested in any of those things, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendar.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, or send a message through offshorecitizen.net. Okay, so Portugal. Now, Portugal has been an incredibly popular country, okay? During COVID, I would say Portugal, Dubai, uh, maybe Thailand, Mexico, like there's a handful of countries, and they just got a flood of people, right? And why was that? Well, first of all, Portugal has wonderful weather, right? So lots of people like that. Portugal has traditionally been quite inexpensive, minus the fact that property prices in places like Lisbon have gone way up. So that's not so cheap anymore. But in general, I would say that the cost of living in Portugal is comparatively affordable to a bunch of other places in the world. People tend to like the laid back lifestyle there. They tend to like the people. There's lots to like about Portugal. That's, I think, kind of the bottom line. And it's got a wide variety of different options because you can live in some place like Lisbon, or you could live in some place like Faro, or you could, live in some place like Porto, or you could live in some place more rural, right? So there's all kinds of different places, as well as, you could go and be on Madeira or the Azores or something like that. Like, lots and lots of different options that are quite attractive. Now, in addition to that, basically no tax on crypto. This to say, no tax on crypto held over a year, and it's fairly easy to orchestrate that. So this is helpful. They had this program called the NHR, which was pretty attractive. There were some ways to make that work for a lot of people that would reduce their taxes a lot because Portugal's taxes normally are quite terrible. Um, they basically kind of nerfed that, and then they kind of brought it back, or they kind of had a different version of it. And recently they brought in something called the IFICI. I will do a future video about that, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can follow along and see about that coming up in the future. And on top of that, it was a fairly reasonable pathway to citizenship, 5 years of residency with, okay, you needed to learn Portuguese, but at a fairly low level. You didn't need to give up your other citizenships. They allowed dual citizenship, and it's frankly a pretty fantastic passport. So all of these things drove people to Portugal, and they did that. Typically, most of the people we were helping, we had lots of different clients who we helped set up there, were going through one or two paths. One was the D7 visa. The D7 visa is essentially for people who are, they have some sort of passive income, right? So in theory, it's kind of a retirement visa, but not really. And the other group were people who were doing the golden visa. And the golden visa was pretty attractive. And it still exists, but the number of options have been reduced a bunch and the price points have been increased a bunch in terms of how much you need to invest. So all of that to say, there was lots of reasons to be interested in Portugal. However, unfortunately, it was never the most efficient country, and it has gotten much worse. So I'm going to give you an anecdote. One of my clients just got his Portuguese golden visa. Now, he applied during COVID, okay? That's what was going on. He applied through the process in COVID, so 3.5 years to get his golden visa. That's a mess. People who were doing things like D7s, I mean, months and months and months of waiting time. To give you some idea, the normal process is that you apply out of the country first, and then when you come to the country, you get an appointment time at the immigration office, and that's sometime in the future. You can stay in the country during that time, but you just have this D visa, not the actual residence permit. And so there's that. By contrast, you get a similar process if you're in some country like Bulgaria, but in Bulgaria, you can basically go down to the immigration department and deal with it the next day if you want to. In Portugal, it will be a long wait. In fact, some people are waiting so long that their documents expire and they're technically not allowed to go anywhere outside of Portugal. Notably, you can technically, like the mechanics of going to other Schengen countries works because there's no borders, but legally, uh, having a Portuguese visa is not a permit to freely be throughout the other countries. So if you get caught and these papers are expired, and this could be a mess, right? So bottom line is that's a bit of an issue. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't do it? Now, I notably at the time made a video, and you can check it out, about why Americans probably shouldn't move to Portugal. And this had to do with the taxes and how the benefits of the NHR basically were exactly the opposite of what you'd want the benefits from an American standpoint to be. Because as I said, the taxes are quite high if you're under a normal regime. It's not just the taxes themselves are obviously quite high, but they also have these socials that are quite brutal. So it can make you well over 50% in the wrong situation. There are some ways to optimize for that. I've gone through in some previous videos talking about it. And if you're interested in how to optimize your tax going to Portugal, we should definitely have a conversation because it's nuanced and it's become more complicated. Anyway, this being said, the thing that was really cool about the golden visa is that you could go and you could get that golden visa and you could not enter the tax system. Okay. Normally, the way that it works is the requirement in order to renew your visa, say you have something like a D7 or a D3 or something like that, uh, requires that you're in the country long enough to be tax resident. Now, the tax department and the immigration department don't talk to each other. That's, kind of separate things. But legally speaking, you're saying, hey, I'm here. And so, you should be in a situation where you're actually liable for tax. Although technically speaking, maybe they don't check or whatever, right? But realistically speaking, this is the way that it's supposed to go. So that's kind of a disadvantage to doing one of those other visas. The golden visa was not like that. The golden visa, you have a minimal stay time. You can basically spend a week a year and be in a situation where you just keep renewing that. You have to renew a couple times. And after 5 years, you could qualify for citizenship. Now, again, the process will take a long time to get approved because Portugal is a mess in terms of their system, right? It's very slow, very backed up, very deranged. But the attractive thing is they brought in this new rule a couple of years ago, which was that for people who have applied, they would count your time towards citizenship from the time you applied, not from the time that you actually got approved. Okay. And that's pretty nice, right? That's in fact very nice because people with a golden visa can actually apply, wait it out for like a few years, right? And it's counting towards their time towards citizenship. Amazing. Great. So I think that at this stage, you should be aware if you're going to get into the Portuguese thing that it's going to take way longer than advertised. Way longer. Maybe they will start to like gradually compress the timelines down and things will be better and things like this. There was a time when that was the case, but I don't really see a meaningful move in that regard. And I don't see kind of the will domestically for them to improve the system. People are quite upset. Probably if they hear me say this, I'm going to get lots of hate comments in the comments below. Anyway, it is what it is. However, in spite of that, I actually think it is still very much worthwhile to go and get a golden visa. I was just talking to somebody the other day that even though they were thinking, oh, like I'd love to get into this Portuguese system, but I kind of want to be somewhere else. And it's like, look, like you should do both. It's great. It's a really wonderful thing to have. It is a great quality passport, like certainly better than the American passport. It's an EU country, so you get right to live in all those places. You get traveling privileges basically everywhere you want to go. As I said, you don't have to give up your other citizenship, so that's cool. You've got second citizenship capabilities. And in the meantime, you have a Schengen visa if you are just maintaining the golden visa, and that's also pretty cool. It does require a $500,000 investment into a specific fund. There's a group of them. We've gone through and we've done deep due diligence on all of them because some of them, I think, frankly, you're probably going to lose your money. They don't really look too good to me. If you're interested, reach out to us and we can go over what our recommendations are based on our due diligence. But there are some that are perfectly good that actually will give you some cash flow along the way. So each year you're getting some dividends that covers the cost of your visa plus maybe a bit. And then there's some ability to make some return. Now, notably, I would say do not expect to make a lot of money off these funds. Okay, your mindset should not be like, hey, this is the greatest investment in the world. It's not. If you're looking for the best place to invest, I wouldn't choose Portugal as the best place to invest. However, you can definitely get preservation of capital, which is important. You can get some cash flow, and you can get some modest return. Like, this is a good combo. And that can be backed typically by hard assets and things like this. There are some people who are doing programs that are like trying to get around the rules because, for example, you're not allowed to invest in real estate anymore. In fact, you're not even allowed to invest in real estate funds anymore. So they'll do these fancy things where they're like, well, you're investing into a management company and the management company has something with it. To me, it's like a little, I personally wouldn't recommend it. I think there are plenty of good options without trying to be fancy about it. But in theory, there are a bunch of things to choose from. So if you're interested, you can reach out to us. We're happy to help you go through that process and kind of choose which is the best for you and make the moves accordingly. So yeah, do I still recommend it? Yeah, I recommend the golden visa for sure for the right people. Obviously, it has to make sense for you financially and all these other things. But I think a lot of people probably should do it. You just have to be aware it's going to take much longer to process than you might have originally thought. Okay, fair enough. In terms of actually moving there under like a D7 or something like that visa these days, I think you have to be really careful about what you're getting into on the tax side because there are a lot of pitfalls. As I said, I'll do a video about the new IFICI in the future. It is not as easy to qualify for. Far fewer people can qualify than could in the original NHR. And there are some things that don't work quite as well in it. Although notably, there are a couple things that are better about it than the previous one. So anyway, we'll cover that in the future. Let me know if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Reach out to us, book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, and I will see you on the next video.